Hello there, my name's Jan from JB Crafts and I'm back today with the next tutorial in my colour theory series of videos. So we've done a few of these now, and if you haven't seen them, please go back and have a look on the channel. They are very informative. I've had some really positive feedback for these about breaking down colour theory into a very simplistic form to enable you to use it in your crafting and your projects. So yeah, I tend to work from the colour wheel, and these are readily available. I buy mine was from Amazon a while ago, and I do sort of pull this out from time to time if I'm wanting to think about how colours work. So again, very quick recap on what we've done already. So colour theory just simply being how those colours all work together and how you can use this to help you choose those designs. We've talked about colours either contrasting, so opposites, or harmonising, the ones that go more together on the wheel to create that nice harmony of colour. And yeah, there's lots of examples. If you think about contrast, I always think, red and green being very Christmassy. Then you've got those ones that come together, which create that nice sort of range of colours. Last week we did the tertiary colours, which are the ones that fit together, and we came across this reds into oranges into the yellow. So that one's up there to have a look at. Some of the colours on the wheel being warmer tones around this side of the wheel as opposed to cooler tones around the other side of the wheel. And then we talked about the word hue being the term that artists tend to use for those pure colours, so the actual pure colour of it. And I'm going to introduce another definition for you today because I've used this in my sample. So I'm going to introduce the word tint today. So this is a new one for today's video. And a tint is simply the pure colour with degrees of white added to it. So you can see straight away that when we take the pure colour red and start adding white to it, this is where our pink shades come from. And that's what I've done today. We're actually going to go more into the pink than the red today. So a tint just being, and you can see this on any of them, if I flick these around on any of the designs, the minute that you start adding white to it, it becomes less and less saturated, and you get those sort of almost down to cream with the yellow. If you have a look round at the primary blue there, you can see we've gone from that rich blue tone right down to these very pale sky blues and so on. So that's what we're going to have a look at in part of our design today. So we touched very briefly. The first video was all about the primary colours. So these are the three colours on the wheel that cannot be made using any other colour. They can't be mixed. They're sort of the building blocks, the ground blocks for the colour wheel. So red, yellow and blue in that triangle. The second video was all about the secondary colours. So when you start mixing those primaries, the red and yellow will give you orange. If I go a bit further round, the yellow and the blue primary will give you a secondary green, and then the blue and the red primary will give you the violet. So that was our secondary colours. That was the second video. Last week we had a look at tertiary colours, which were colours that sit next to each other in between the primaries and the secondaries. So for example, the orange red and the red orange. So a tertiary colour is when you mix a primary with a secondary and you end up with shades in between. So again, if we go for a primary yellow with a secondary orange, you're going to get, and that's what we used last week, and I gave you some examples of the other colours on the chart. So today we're actually going to look at complementary colours. So these are colours that tend to go opposite each other on the wheel. We've touched on this very briefly because I said obviously things like the red and the green, typically Christmas springs to mind. The secondary colours, we actually looked at the oranges, the purples and the greens being mainly sort of Halloween. But a complementary colour sits opposite. So for example, we've got red with the green opposite. If I go round to orange, you can see that orange sits opposite blue. So there's a pattern forming. We've got a primary colour with a secondary colour. And then again, if I go around to the yellow, you've got the violet opposite. So we've got that primary colour with the secondary colour again. So I'm going to spin it back round to the top. I'm going to go back to the red. Okay, and I'm going to have a look at the red and green. Now there are lots of different shades of greens, you know, so you can bring any of them in here. And I purposely brought in the word tint today because I've moved from the red into this pink band. So we're going to look at sort of pinks in here and then more down towards these lighter shades of green. All right, and if I bring you in the design that I've made today, this is one of my favourite card designs. You can see we've got that much lighter green going on here, and then I've brought in the pinks as a complementary colour. So that's where we're going to be working today. So let's put that colour wheel to one side for a second, and my card is a side panel fold here, and it all folds down to a 6 by 6 size. I'm going to show you how to make the card base, and then we've got some decoration using those green tones and the pinks from that red mix there. Okay, so that's the actual card. I'll show you the stamp set I've used, and again, just really simple matting and layering once you've got that card base cut, and then embellishing how you see fit. So I'm going to bring in, I've made a template for this particular design. I think it's a nice way to show how you're going to cut the card. So we need a piece of card that starts out at 12 inches in length by 6 inches in height, and that's the one that will fold down to that 6 by 6 size. And then I've literally on here, I've actually measured out, so it's probably a good opportunity if you want to sort of either pause the video, or if you want to pause it and take a screenshot, you've got those measurements, and it's worth making the template, and then you don't have to rework it out every time you want to come and make this design. So I've just put a bit of a key on here that the pink lines are going to be score lines. So these vertical lines are going to be score lines, and the blue horizontal lines here are going to be a cut line, and you've got a couple of ways of doing that. And then the codes are just simply an M for mountain fold and a V for valley fold on those score lines, and I'll talk you through all this when we start the actual piece. So I've taken a piece of 12 by 6 on that gorgeous green cardstock. Let's just pop that one to one side for a minute. And we're going to score this. I haven't prepared this deliberately because I wanted to show you guys how we're going to do this. So we're going to measure it, we're going to score it, we're going to cut it, and do the whole works together. So what I want to do then, the easiest way I find of doing this is if you have a paper trimmer as opposed to a guillotine, then this allows you to cut within the card rather than top to bottom. If you don't have a paper trimmer, you can do this with a craft knife and a metal ruler on a cutting mat. So that is an alternative way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is, if you look here on the 6-inch height, I've come in 1 inch at this side and effectively 1 inch here. So this is 1 inch and 5 inch across if you were measuring it. Now with the paper trimmer, it works really well because you end up with the measurements on either side, and I tend to work on this side to do my cuts. And then I also want to cut, I want to begin cutting at 1 inch from this left hand side, and I want to stop when I get to 7 inches. So this is a 6-inch cut line from 1 inch down to 7. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this in my trimmer, and I'm going to bring it over this way to the 1-inch cut line and make sure that everything is lined up nicely on that 1 inch. And then I tend to turn my trimmer this way so that I can see what I'm doing here. So I'm on the 1-inch line here. I'm going to start my trimmer here, and excuse if I get my head in here, but I just need to line it up with that 7-inch mark. So I've got it lined up on 7 inches, and I'm going to cut all the way up to 1 inch and then stop when I get to that 1-inch line. And I've now got a nice clean cut in my card. Then I'm going to flip it over doesn't really matter which side you cut on, because I want to do the same on this side again. So I'm going to make sure I'm lined up on that 1 inch. Make sure that everything's lined up in the top of your trimmer. I'm going to bring this back to the 7. Make sure I've got it in line just there. And again, slide this all the way up and stop when I get to that 1 inch. So I've gone from here to here. And I've put in those 2 cut lines now in my cardstock. So this is where we're going to start with that piece. Now I do tend to just burnish those back down, because the paper trimmer does tend to lift the edge, I find, a little bit. So I'm just going to burnish those down, and then I'm going to bring my scoreboard in. Okay, and I'm going to work with that 1 inch space on the left hand side. So I've got a much bigger piece at this side. I want that 1 inch space on the left hand side of my board. And then we're going to bring in these pink score lines. Now you can see they don't go through the whole piece, and that's really important, because you don't want to have, for example, a whole score line through this piece that's going to make the back of the card. So the first 2 score lines begin from the cut line and end on the second cut line. Same again here. And then this one at 7 inches is going to be the same within. So that's going to create that rectangle here. And then the 6 inch line is just going to create a score line above and below. Okay, so I'll try and leave both of these in shot so that you can see them both. So first of all, I want to bring in this 1 inch line from where I've cut to where I've cut. So I'm going to come to 1 inch on my board. I hope you can see all this. And I'm just going to travel down to where that cut line starts, and then press in and score into my card there. And I've stopped when I've got to that second cut line. Then I'm going to do the same at 2 inches. So we're going to do within those 2 cut lines again. So exactly the same at 2 inches here. Just travel down, and then when I get to the inside part there, I'm going to score within that frame. Then I'm going to do the 7 inch one, purely because that's the same again. So I'm going to come over all the way across to my 7 inch, which is where your cut line should stop. And again, I'm going to travel down that 7 inch and then bring that score line, and that should actually meet the end of the cut lines there. Okay, and then I just want to come back and pop that 6 inch line in, and that's going to be above and below. So at 6 inches, I am just going to score down to the cut line in that little 1 inch strip here. And then what I tend to do is just put my score tool in the track and then come up again. Make sure that everything stays nice and straight. And again, I'm just going to put a little score line in that bottom section, but stop when I get to that cut line again. And then the last one to put in here is at 9 inches. Now I've only got my small scoreboard out here. If you've got your larger scoreboard, you can do the 9. But this is actually 3 inches in from the end. If you remember, the whole thing was 12. So this is just simply 3 inches in. So what I'm going to do then is just flip mine around, and I'm just going to score at 3 inches on this end to create that panel at the side there. Now all my score lines are on the same side. We are going to do some mounting and some valley folding, but it will work there. If you want to score it on both sides, you can. I've just worked on the top of my cardstock there. And what we're going to do is we're going to start and fold some of these in place. If I tilt this, hopefully you can see where those score lines are. I've got them within the cut lines for those 3. I've got outside the cut lines for this one, which is your halfway mark, and then I've got that one in either at 9 inches if you're going along the top length, or I brought it round and did it at 3 inch here. Okay, so let's have a look then. We'll look at our key again. So the first one is going to be a mounting fold. All right, so again, I'm just going to start and tease that cardstock, and a mounting fold just means that you've got the peak of the fold at the top. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that one and just start pinching it into place. The next one is a valley fold, so that means it goes the other way, so the peak is actually down inside. And again, if you want to pop a ruler in here, you can actually fold it up against the ruler and get a nice beginning of a fold on there. So we don't need to make sure that we're going to burnish them when we get this in a better shape. If I come to the middle, those outside ones were mountain folds, so the little one here, give it a pinch, and the little one here, give it a pinch. And then this one is also a mountain fold as well. So again, what I'm going to do is actually turn it over, put my ruler at the side of that, and then just push it against the ruler there. And you can see this starting to take some shape. Okay. And then that last one, if I bring it in the right orientation again, we can see here is a valley. So this one is going to come over this way. So just make sure when it folds that everything's nice and parallel again. And then I'm going to burnish these in place. So the valley fold, again, like I said, is just meaning that it creates that valley inside it. And then what should happen when you've got all these in place now is that if you fold it down carefully and just squeeze where you've pinched those folds, you will get that nice 6 by 6 inch shape. So once these are in place, I'm now going to burnish those quite well, because this is actually going to be, you know, a card that moves. And again, we're going to, wherever we've folded those crease lines, give it a really good burnish. And then this one, fold it flat again, and we've got the one that creates the frame here, and then there's a sneaky one hiding underneath. So if you just lift that and give that one, and I tend to do this from both sides because you want this to lay nice and flat, and it should all fold up into that 6 by 6 inch shape. So really that was the sort of bones of it. Now I am going to do in a future video what you can actually double these up, so you can stick these two together and make a really nice kind of, you know, big showstopper card there. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to stick with that side panel fold. Okay, so that's my base. It now comes to how you want to decorate it. So I've got some matting and layering, just simple matting and layering for the inside panel here and the frame. We're going to get those in place, and then we'll work on this little insert in the middle here. So again, if I bring this one back in and flip it over, I've actually got my sizes written down. So again, if you want to sort of take a screenshot of this or make a note of them, they're there. So the blue ones are the matte layers, the pink ones are your paper or your ink, whatever you're choosing to put on the top. So what I've done then is I've got some of these ready to try and make the video not go on for too long. So if you look at this top section here, I need 2 pieces, and these are the long skinny pieces that are going to go along here. And I've got my matte layer at 5 7/8 by 7/8 of an inch. There's a very skinny border on these. And then I've got my paper layer on the other side at 5 3/4 by 3/4. And these are going to sit across the top and the bottom here like so. And then you need a slightly shorter one to fill the gap here. So this one is going to be 3 7/8 by 7/8 for my silver layer. That's my matte layer. And then 3 3/4 by 3/4 of an inch is my paper that I've chosen. And this one's going to fit in the middle to bridge that gap there. So we'll stick those down in a second. And then for the panel, so this piece here on this side, the panel, we want a piece that is a matte layer that is 5 7/8 by 2 7/8 here, the blue line. And I've cut this in the matte silver, so this one's going to fit in here. And you can see there's just a very, very skinny kind of 1/16 of an inch border. And then your paper layer is just going to be that wee bit smaller again. And I've got a piece that is 5 3/4 by 2 3/4. Now just to add a bit of decoration, you can just see here I've actually brought in one of my corner punches. So this one's actually a Deco Fan corner punch, and I've gone for alternate corners here just to add a bit more detail. Again, not necessary, it is just extra detail. I'll come back to this inside layer when we get to that section. So what I'm going to do is pop this one on here, and I've gone round all of my papers with some tone on tone ink. So I've just looked at the green and gone with one that I can actually edge the paper with, just to give that little bit of definition around the edge. And then I've popped some tape on this one ready, and I'm just going to release the backing on those long sides. We can get rid of the short sides there. And then I'm going to add a tiny bit of glue to those corners as well. I just want to make sure that the corners are secure. So just where I've done that punching here, I'm just going to add a tiny little bit here around that inside, just to make sure that those are secure as well. And then using those little tabs that I've created, I'm literally going to pop this one. And again, there's a really skinny border. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate on the two right angled corners here. And if they're in the right place, the rest of it should be good. So that's my panel at the ready. Okay. And what I did do was forget to get a new tape pen out. My double-sided tape pens run out, so we will actually pop over to the wet glue for these. So again, just on the back of here to secure that side panel with the all-purpose glue, and this one's going to go, and as I say, there is only a little skinny border on here, so you want to just get that one nicely in place so that you've got about the same all the way around there, and then that one can go in place. Now I need to apologise again for my little doggo, because I don't know whether you guys can hear it. I can hear it. She's actually snoring her head off. I've managed to sort of overcome the tip-tapping on the floor because I brought her dog bed in from the lounge, and she's gone to sleep in there now, but she's snoring. So if you can hear any snoring in the background, it's Lacey that's responsible, which is just making me giggle a little bit. She's flat out down there now. So because these two are a little bit skinnier and I need them to set in place, I don't normally do this, but I am going to bring in my dot tape runner. I normally save this for die cuts and things, but it is a nice strong adhesive in here. And because, as I say, these are a much skinnier piece, I want them to pop into place and stay where I put them. So you can either flatten it all out or fold it into its 6x6. And again, this one's just going to run with that tiny, tiny border again all the way down. So once you're happy with that in place, give it a nice press into position. And we're going to do the same across the top. She's giving it some now. Proper fast asleep, which is a good sign really, because her dad's gone out again today, and she usually gets very stressed when he goes out. So the fact that she's gone to sleep means she's a bit more settled. Okay, and that one's going to go in there, and then we've just got that little one there that's going to bridge the gap in the centre, so we'll do that one as well down here, and that one's just going to sit in that gap there again with that nice skinny border on either of those long sides. I'm just sort of eyeballing that it runs level with this one and this one, and we'll give that. So you can see we've got the beginnings of that. Now I don't tend to decorate this inside. I like the contrast of the green or this piece, but you could put another one of these in here if you wish. You could measure this one to mat and layer in there, but I like the contrast with that green. So that's the bulk of the matting and layering done. And then the next thing we need to do is bring in the decoration for the inside. So again, if I bring that piece back in, we've got a matte layer and a top layer again. So my matte layer I've carried on with the silver, and I've done a piece that measures 4 7/8 by 3 7/8 here, and that piece is going to sit in the back here like so as my matte layer. And then the top layer is actually 4 3/4 by 3 3/4, and I've started my design on here. I've got a nice little stamped image on here, and this is out of one of the old subscription boxes from Crafters Companion. It's a really pretty little die. It's got some lovely cute stamped images on. I've just chosen a little rabbit here blowing his little heart kisses out, and I've stamped him out and started colouring him with some of my alcohol pens. And then what I want to do is I'm actually going to sort of create my own decoupage just as a bit of interest. You don't have to. Again, if you just want to do this and keep it flat, absolutely fine. We've talked about, you know, if you're not a colourer, you can stamp onto some grey paper or pattern paper and do it that way, but I've just left a little bit of this to finish off. I didn't want to do the whole colouring on camera because it does take a little while. If any of you that use alcohol as a colouring medium, you'll understand what I mean by this. So again, I've actually kept that colour palette to my pale pink and green, which were my complementary colours for this particular video, and then I brought in a neutral with the grey there. So I've done the little bunny in the grey, I've got a little bit of accent with the pink, and I'm going to colour the little hearts in pink as well. So again, just to add that tiny little bit of colour in here, and I wanted to keep it to those two complementary colours, and then add the grey. And of course we'll come on to grey in the future videos, because grey is actually a midway of your grey scale, which begins at black and ends in white. And obviously we talked about those tints today. By adding white to your black, you will get shades of grey, and that's commonly known as the grey scale. So yeah, just by adding a neutral colour in there with these two, we've got that nice design. So again, I've just added, and I literally just shot straight out of the lines there, which is where the blender pen comes in. You guys may not be able to see it, I don't know, but here it's just gone. So all I'm going to do is push that alcohol back, because you can see where it's come through the back here already. But if you just use your blender to push it, I'm not literally pushing, I'm just pressing it and soaking it with the clear alcohol, it will push that colour through the cardstock, and it almost acts as like an eraser. And then I want to add some grass, which is where I've brought the green in. So again, some of these are brush nibs, some of them are bullet nibs. It's just a mixture that I've got. And I'm actually going to use my blender in connection with this one again here. So I've got a jade green blend, and I'm going to come just underneath here to add a hint of colour, and also tie it in with what we've done in the card itself. So I'm just creating that little green border along the bottom here to ground him. And then I'm going to use my blender in tiny little circles and just nudge the edge of that green to soften it a little bit. And then obviously over time, when that alcohol's evaporated, you'll see it sort of goes a little bit fuzzy on the edges and almost like dissipates into the card rather than having that hard edge. So we'll leave that there. So that's my colouring in there. You may say, well, you've not finished him, but what I've actually done, I've done a bit of bunny surgery this morning. I've actually got part of him here, and I want to create my own decoupage. I've got all the little foam pads on the back of here ready. So as far as decoupage is concerned, anything that's closer to you is more raised up. So what I've done is I've left his back foot, the arm that's sort of behind him, and the ear that's at the back, which is where the surgery came in, and his little tail. And then I've just cut out the other bit and spent a bit more time on the shading. This was just colour, just because you can sometimes see under the edge of it, and Jan's very, very picky. The OCD kicks in. You don't have to colour the underneath, but I've just done a layer of grey, and then this one is going to stick over the top here. All right. So just before I pop that on, I'm going to add a little bit more detail. And because I'd got all the washi tape out the other day for one of my other videos, I found this one, which was really nice. It's the perfect tone to work with this, the perfect tone. I couldn't have planned it any better if I've tried. And then it also had the hearts on, which keeps the theme here with this one. So this is about 1.5 centimetres wide. So all I've done is just measure a couple of little pencil marks where I want this to go. And I'm just going to add in a little bit more detail here, and I'm just going to trap that between those pencil lines here as a vertical, like so. Tear that off, and then we'll just wrap that round the back, and it just adds another bit of interest. And we're going to add a little embellishment on there as well. If there is any pencil still showing, I can just get rid of that with my eraser there, and we're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this on the matte layer, I think, first, and then we'll build up that decoupage. Put something on there now. I don't know what that is. Whatever it is doesn't want to leave, so we'll leave that as it is. Yeah, so this one's going to go onto here. So again, I'm going to have to stay with my dot runner because, as I say, my double-sided ones run out, and I forgot to get, I have got some new ones in the cupboard. But if I start rummaging the cupboard now, you can bet your life something will fall out and create a calamity. So we'll just stick with this one for now. And again, we've got that tiny little skinny border, so I'm going to focus on the bottom section there. And if I've got that bit straight, the rest of it should go down. And then just give that a nice press down to activate that adhesive underneath. And we've got him at the ready. And I think what I'm going to do is actually pop this into the card base before we put the decoupage on, because it will be easier to press it down flat. So now that we're going cardstock to cardstock again, I'm going to bring out that wet glue. And this will give me time to just wriggle everything into place again. So this one's going to go in the gap that I've got left here. So I'm going to open it out flat. And I'm going to pop this one again. We've got that really skinny little border. So get it positioned and make sure that this will actually fold up around it. You don't want this piece to interfere with that score line. It wants to be able to fold over it and fold flat before you actually secure it into place. So I'm just going to give that a second to tack, and we'll come back to the little bunny and pop him in a minute. And then I've got lots and lots of embellishments going on again. So I've brought that pink in with some flowers, and this is just a little, I use this such a lot. It's a little tiny die plate that I've had for a long time from an old Crafter's Companion set. I've got a couple of these, and it cuts out those 5 different type flowers. You can get the other bits of the centres, but I've put pearls in the centres of mine. Really, really nice one for using on those scraps. I've also used a little tiny bow die to create the pink bow. So we've got that as an embellishment. And then I have cut a couple of little frondy pieces out of some green that complements the design. I've got a little tiny heart embellishment, little beaded one, and then I've got my sentiment here. Enjoy the little things. So again, just using a couple of nesting dies, and this one's going to fit in here. So I'm going to flick to my precision tip glue here just to put this one down. I'm going to keep it flat because this is going to close inside the actual design. So I'm literally going to pop this one in here like so. And it's just about the right width there. Okay, I'm just going to pop down here. I've forgotten to put my hot glue on again. Let me just plug that in. That can be warming up. And we've got that in place ready. And then I'm going to add the bow to the bottom of that just to accent it and bring that pink into play. So this bit here, I'm just going to put some glue, and again I'm sticking with the little fine tip applicator for this one. And then just on my cloth at the side of me, I'm going to tap off some of that excess glue, and this is just going to sit about central on the bottom of here. Give that a press down. And then I'm going to use the flowers and the little flourishes to decorate the frame. Okay, so just while I'm waiting for that hot glue to come together, I will put the little bunny on. So we just need to take off those back pieces. And again, you don't always have to take all of these off. Some of them are just for support. So if you want to just take off the ones around the outside, then that's okay. And I am going to add a little tiny bit of wet glue as well on these, because it just gives me that few seconds to make sure that everything is in the right place. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to take that big one off at the top there, and then just hold him so that I can just tap on all the ones that I've taken the backer off, which I think is pretty much all of them. There's just a couple left. And then this one is going to line up over the one that we've done here. So again, I'll bring this flat, and then I've just cut this out with my scissors, just line it up over the one that's already there. And it's just adding a little bit more interest there with that decoupage feel to it. There we go. And then the little heart, I'd got loads of these in a pack that I bought that had loads of you won't be surprised that there was a pack of pink embellishments, and I just thought it just perfectly frames this. And the wet glue here, the tacky glue, is great for any kind of embellishment. So is there a right and a wrong side of that one? Asks. Let's have a look. I think it's the same pretty much on both sides. So all I'm going to do is just add that wet glue there. Make sure I've got plenty on. And then again, I'm just going to tap off the excess there. So I don't want it too wet because it's going to squidge out. And then literally pop this one. And it did slide about a little bit when I did the original one, but when I left it alone, just get that glue to grab, and just there, get it to grab. It did actually stick in place. So I'm going to leave that there like that while we do the rest of the design now. So I can pop that, I need that for the flourishes. So we've just got a couple of little green flourishes, and I'm going to bring one of those in across the bottom and one of them down the side here. So again, just little dots of glue to anchor it, because the flowers are going to sit on top of it, so it doesn't need to be anything too serious. That one's going to come down that vertical like so. Just give that one a second to grab. And then we're going to do the same at the bottom here with this one. Whoops. So again, I'm just going to pop the majority of that's making contact with the card. So again, just little dots again in some of those positions, and then the flowers over the top of it are going to anchor it in place. So this one's going to come along here like so. Make sure that one's stuck down. And then my hot glue should have actually warmed up enough now. And then all we're going to do is add those flowers. Excuse me. So I'm going to start with the big one there. Just add some of that hot glue. This one's going to come down in that bottom corner. And then what I've done is I've sort of alternated the sizes. So the next size down, I'm actually going to take up to the top corner. So again, just a little bit. If you have 3D glue gel, you could use that to pop these in place. And then the next size down is going to come back to the big one. And I've just shaped these a little bit with my shaping tool. I want that one to tuck and nestle in there. And then the next size down is going to go up to the top again. So I've just sort of staggered them to spread them out across the card there. Maybe a little bit more on that one. So that one's going to go up here with this one. And then I've got a little tiny baby one left. And I'm going to make this one a trio at the bottom there. So that one's just going to go here to finish off. And if you do get any of those little glue strands, if you're using the hot glue, just pop your heat tool gently over it when you're finished, and it will just dissolve them into the background. They just disappear into the background of the card. So you can see there we've got that beautiful little design there, all folds down, and I've tried to keep all the embellishments within that 6-inch parameter so that it will go in a 6-inch square, an envelope designed for 6-inch square cards. And then it opens and it stands beautifully. You can see there where it will actually stand up. And then, as always, the only thing I'd added to my sample one was to just add a few little extra gems in here, just to sort of focal that, make it a focal point there, and it's all good to go. So that was actually using that colour wheel there to create that style using complementary colours, which was our focus for colour theory today. And I went for the red and green and translated that into a tint of the red, which we've learned today was a shade of pink. And then I actually came a little bit lower down the green and used a tint here. So the tint just meaning adding white to lighten those shades. And we went more into this sort of lighter green to match the pink for our complementary colours. So I don't have any extra designs for this one today. I do normally do you some alternate designs, but I have actually done a bit more work on the design of the card today. So it is just that one for you to see today using complementary colours. But we could easily have gone along the orange versus the blue. So again, you could have come down to those more pastel shades if you wished. And alternatively, we've got yellow to violet, which is a nice combination, and anywhere in between. We talked about those tertiary colours last week, so you know it could be that you choose one of those and come for its opposite partner anywhere on the wheel, as long as these are opposites. So for example, you could have that nice red violet with the green yellow, and you can see here on the wheel, if you're using a colour wheel, the complementary colours, it's actually showing you on the arrow that they are opposite. So that opposite can be pretty much anywhere on your wheel. So if you like those teal shades, they look really, really nice with that orange red, which is more of a coral. So yeah, lots and lots of different ways of using it. So I hope you've enjoyed that today with our complementary colours. Enjoyed the card design. Again, if you want to have a go at making this, I love seeing the ones that people have done and put up on my Facebook page. You can find me on Facebook at JB Crafts as well. And thank you for joining me. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. It does help on the channel here, and I will be back very, very soon with my next tutorial for you guys. Bye bye now.